Bye-bye. I'm going to go area code 304. It's Michael's area code, but I'm not sure it's him, but we're going to talk to someone. Area code 304, are you there?
Yes, Jesse, I'm here.
There you are, Michael. It's a little different number than I was looking for, but I found you. How's it going today?
Well, I had a tough time reaching you.
You did?
Yeah. I have to make calls to the 304 number, and then it goes to the, then I can use that number from a different location, but it's, I guess the communications are sketchy today.
It could be. Our system seems to be overloaded, for sure. Our atmosphere is definitely charged up, Michael. But we'll probably see some pretty good storms to discharge some of that in the next day or so.
Yeah. You know what? People should really, concerning the weather, tune into the Weather Channel on occasion, because they're trying to explain these weather phenomena, and I believe they should be showing that all throughout the summer into the winter, where they explain one of the issues they're trying to explain to everybody is the lightning discharges.
Kind of prepping everyone.
Yeah, I think because the discharges of lightning are becoming so strong, it's really affecting power lines and a host of other things. But it's pretty strong, and it's going to become stronger and stronger. You know, as the sun continues to feed the ionosphere with heated up, which is what every solar flare does. It heats up the ionosphere. And the Earth is essentially turned into a tight microwave oven, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we're kind of trapped in here, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's right. Like I said, we've got to the 16th as far as current information, but we had a coronal mass ejection today. It wasn't a giant one, but the flares have gone very quiet this morning, and that's going to give us somewhat of a break, which is good. But Michael, did you see the information that Iran has crossed into Iraq in 2 places?
Well, Iran has built some pretty good ties with Iraq, and things are unfolding. You know what, Jesse, I can say this, that things will unfold differently than a great many people thought. And, of course, anybody who's heard me, they know I have to follow prophecy. Sometimes our theories don't pan out, but then we understand prophecy better by the movements. There are drone strikes in effect also, and Iran they have close ties with Iraq, and they will help them out. The problem with that is this: if Iran helps Iraq, as they're beginning to do now, Iran has a multitude of forces, and you cannot tell the difference between those forces once they get into that land. They'll continue to spread and build. At that point, the Middle East will face, it'll be very different. Of course, I did try to say that the Middle East, everything would change in the Middle East.
Right.
Of course it is.
It has. That's right. They're basically on the eastern edge of the Euphrates River now, and they've taken over checkpoints. I've got an associated photo. I was looking at it in an article this morning of. It looked just like the Russians taking the Crimean checkpoints on the outer edges of the country, taking control of traffic. But I don't see. We talked about it last night. This conflict with Iraq and Syria and Turkey creating a power vacuum, and this morning's news, we're seeing that vacuum filled. But, if we're... Michael, what do you think about it? Because sometimes you just kind of got to back up to see you can't see the forest for the trees because you're kind of digging into research and things, and you need to bounce this off. And with the sixth trumpet, the Euphrates River, and the move of the 200 million man army, what do you see in all of this movement here, and how does that, if it does it tie in what you're seeing?
Well, I tell you what, on that, when the sixth angel poured out its vial in the river Euphrates dried up, I believe that's in Revelation 16. That's a lengthy process. Of course, we know waters just don't, the ground is saturated and so forth. Not actually a line they would carry, but I think a great many people do not know is that underneath the Euphrates River, they have built, there are structures underneath that river that were started in ancient Egypt. There are structures under there, and they've utilized that space. In 1991, during the Gulf War, when ordnance was dispatched in Iraq and other places, they found that underneath the ground were vast caverns. I mean vast caverns. One of the caverns, or one of the underground structures, housed 2 rows of aircraft, 5 tons. U.S. Army issued 5 tons, a great many tanks and so forth. This was just one of many caverns. Underneath the ground of the Middle East, someone's been very busy. Most people only see the top, but underneath the Euphrates River is an arsenal of vehicles and aircraft and weaponry and brand new clothing, military clothing. It's mind-blowing. And of course, some of the soldiers that were involved. Go ahead.
Does that military clothing have an insignia?
Well, what it is they obviously had piled up surplus clothing from us. A lot of soldiers in 1991 who went down there. They were involved in ordnance because they had to go down and inspect these things. It's not classified, but they can tell you that a lot of that clothing was our clothing. U.S. Army issued clothing.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so it's almost a hidden city sitting underneath the entire Middle East that a great many people do not know about. And so this is why I constantly emphasize that no one should underestimate what's happening in the Middle East, because it is it's the beginning of something when that happens. And you know what? According to Revelation, because there are a lot of good soldiers in the U.S., there are still a lot of good people in office, a lot of good people in certain agencies. They will not permit Israel to be, just trampled. They won't permit that. They won't permit any tyrannical forces in the U.S. to activate either. So I've held firm to this belief that in order for the prophecies in the Bible to take effect concerning Israel, the U.S. has to be crippled. It has to be crippled. And right now my eyes are on those things that would cripple the U.S. Of course, following the Middle East, but something has got to cripple the U.S. In some type method in order for these guys to do what they, for the beast system to take effect all over the world.
Well, in some ways, the U.S. has been crippled because of poor diplomacy. In right. That sense, but not militarily. But you're saying that there's hidden forces that are ready to back up any major move. Is that what I mean?
Well, not so much hidden. It's just that there are a great many people who will not accept the orders given them because people are very educated due to the Internet. And they can see things outside of their command, outside of what they're being told publicly. And they can see an entire picture that something, in fact, very heinous could take place in the United States, and they just simply won't permit that. So when I say cripple, that means that a great many people in the United States who serve in the armed forces, involved in the government forces, law enforcement and other places would have to be neutralized or taken out in order for the U.S. to be neutralized, in effect, to help Israel out. Because as it stands right now, if something were to happen, I can guarantee you that there are forces within the United States that will react. There will be no more president involved because they will take charge of things and do what they have to do.
The real leaders will step forward.
Yeah, they certainly will. They're not going to permit. They're only going to allow so much. But when it comes to a country, their ally being totally crippled, and the U.S. being totally crippled, they just simply won't permit that. So I believe, this is my belief, this is not law, this is just my belief, that the Middle East is arranging itself to circumvent that function because they know the U.S. will retaliate in some fashion. And so what they're trying to do is slowly maneuver pieces into play to counter any type of offensive that we may use to mitigate any damage to Israel. Now, you know what, Jesse? It brings me to a scripture in Revelation 17. And this is very controversial, by the way. But people skip it over, and I can't skip it over. It has to deal with Mystery Babylon, right? It has to deal, but because Mystery Babylon was written on the head of the woman, because it was written on the head of the woman, it doesn't mean a Mystery Babylon, first of all, is a place that you would never suspect would be Babylon. That's why it's a mystery.
Right.
Anyway, this same individual, Mystery Babylon, is mentioned in Jeremiah and a few other books of the Bible. And it has to deal with the holy city because she made the world deal with the wrath of God by her dealings. And there's something else. The beast hates her. That's something people skip over too. The beast system hates that woman, Mystery Babylon, hates her. And this woman sits on the, in Revelation 17:9, it says this, and here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. That verse, if somebody looked at the Middle East geologically, they would find the answer. I'm not going to say it, on the air because it's very controversial. But it does give you an idea that Israel is in fact the target of this entire end times prophecy called Revelation. It's the target. It is the completion of something. And we see that happening. We see that unfolding, and surrounding that are a great many things concerning the sun and meteor showers and volcanoes coming out of the sea and so forth. But that has to be, discerned in truth without preconceived notions, but just by Scripture. Not by, my interpretation or anybody else's interpretation, but it becomes clear what the focal point is.
Well, we see the destruction of Mystery Babylon as the merchants set off in their ships and moan because they no longer can trade their merchandise. And are you pointing, I'm not being controversial here at all, I'm just asking a question, Michael. Does it look like that Israel is going to play that part of the Mystery Babylon? If we see the armies of the world come up against at Armageddon in that area, and the armies are called up by the evil spirits out of the Euphrates, out of the mouth of the frogs. They bring the generals of the earth together.
I'll say this. It says the holy city in Revelation 11. It says the holy city will be trampled underfoot for 40 and 2 months. The holy city will. That's Jerusalem. Now, the beast hates the woman. If the beast hates the woman, then the woman's not part of the beast system.
That's right.
She's not part of it. And that means if the beast, the devil himself, hates this woman, she is not part of the devil. She's not. You see, it's like this. The Lord said at one point that, he said to us, if my people would humble themselves and pray, I'd turn and heal the land. Well, that same principle held fast for Israel. Had Israel done right, the entire world could have been set free. could have been set free. And it's not, there were, at that time, there were people like the Sadducees and Pharisees who lived by the letter of the law, these same people that did not accept Jesus Christ. In fact, they were the ones that sent him to be crucified. Of course, the Romans took over from there. But you have that same mindset spread all over the place now. And it will be completed. The process will be completed. But it takes study to understand, so it's not offensive. Because a lot of people will say, well, this guy's against Israel. Not at all. Or this guy's against the Jews. Not at all. Because they are, in fact, the only reason we have Christ in the first place. The world has salvation through them. But what's written is what's written, and they are the final key in this prophecy.
Well, it also says that there are Jews in Judea that claim to be Jews, but are not, and are the synagogue of Satan.
Yeah, just like the Sadducees and Pharisees. See,
That's
you know
right.
what is strange? Because when Jesus came here, they didn't know who he was. In fact, the Sadducees and the Pharisees and lawyers and scribes had often faced Jesus, the Son of God, and tell the Son of God what God actually meant. You think they felt kind of stupid when they found out the truth? But then that's why Jesus said, forget them, for they know not what they do. They did not recognize Jesus as the Son of God. They couldn't see it. And that was also prophesied.
That's right. And they were semi-blinded by greed, because if the priest in the temple would be out of work when the true teacher was recognized. If they would have allowed him to be recognized then, they would have been out of work.
Yes. Same thing that's happening
a real job.
today.
Yeah.
Yep.
They would have had to get a real job.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what,
And
Jesse,
so,
that's where a lot of the opposition in this world comes from, is because people don't have, there's a spirit that's crept in that's just like the times of old. They want control over the listeners who listen to the Bible. So they nitpick. They pull out periods and sentences and this, that, and the other, and they find flaws, fault finders. And they attempt to have an argument based on faults that an individual makes, just like the Pharisees and Sadducees did. And the reason why is because they wanted people to go through them.
That's right.
And you're right.
That principle.
Had they accepted Christ, they would have been dethroned.
That's right. The real king would have there, but he made sure that prophecy was fulfilled so that we would have that knowledge. The New Testament, right. The words in red were because he existed, and because they fulfilled the words in Psalms.
Yeah.
But listen, it goes even deeper than that, because many of those scribes were not Jews at all. They were Kenites. Because if you trace the story of the Kenites, also of the tribe of the scribes, is one of their titles. Kenite, not Canaanite, but Kenite is Kenites, means sons of Cain. Now, after the Babylonian captivity, when the priests went into the captivity, the Levitical priesthood was in charge of the church. But after the captivity, after the control of confusion, no longer were the scribes, with the Kenites, were working in the church, sweeping the floors and things. They had taken over slowly the bookkeeping, the money counting, and as the tribes came back out of Babylon, the Kenites, the son of Cain, had taken over the priesthood. And they cried, crucify him, crucify him. They were placed by Satan 500 years earlier. Because Satan knows the Bible.
Yep.
And those people still exist. This is after the flood. There's a tribe.
See, Jesse, a lot of people...
let me just finish on the Kenites, Michael. I'm sorry, but I need to say this because people... What I'm saying is, they're saying, well, why can't I get through to these people? They're not listening. And it's not all... But they're still members of the sons of Cain on this planet that have another father. Not your father. And anyway, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say that.
There's not been another flood, you know.
Right. A great many people, if they, you know what, a lot of people ask, well, why is it, when the Bible mentions this one begot this one, begot this one, begot, it's there for a reason. It's there for a precise reason. One of the reasons is the perpetuation and the fight that took place to preserve the bloodline of Jesus Christ coming, right? That's one.
Right.
But if you trace the other ones, you can see his opposition parallel with him. And Jesus told them directly, your father is of the devil. Your serpent's a brood of vipers. He pointed them out, and a great many people didn't understand that because they don't have the same heart as a believer has. It's as simple as this. A believer that does believe in Jesus Christ has a lot of compassion in their hearts. They're not out here trying to sow division or anything else, because the Lord said, you'll know my disciples by how they love one another. How they love one another. And if there's no love or compassion in a person's heart, well, that seed of love from God is not in them, because that seed of love comes from the Father directly. They're not of the seed. In the book of James, it says, no seed of God will remain in this world, meaning they won't remain in the things of this world. They won't continue to do those things because their heart will win out. They will surrender. They will surrender. And in the time of Christ, a lot of people did not recognize who these scribes were, who these people were, but Satan's opposition was in the bloodline too, side by side with Jesus Christ.
And listen, because Satan knew the Scriptures, he was always trying to be one step ahead. That's why he had the priest there. Now, Michael, this is why I've been kind of hot at some of these preachers. You and I never claimed to be a preacher. And I get really upset when I have to step in and do their job for them. But that was a modern-day story in the Old Testament leading up to the changing of the priesthood. And, Michael, we have seen it now. There's been a change in the priesthood, and all that say they are priests and scribes are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. They are Satan's seed. They are the sons of Cain. And they're here as just the way they were then. What was their job? Priest. And they're here now. And they are part of the first wave of the locust army that came out of Rome, of this one-world religion. Now, they are here. They've been embedded. Satan has them embedded like ticks, the same way he had them there before the return of Christ. And they're going to be embedded here and in every church. Almost every church on this earth before Satan gets here. Because this time they're not going to cry, crucify him. They're going to cry, here is Jesus. And it's going to be the first one. It's going to be the false one. But Satan placed his little troops in place, and he's got them there now. I can feel it. And some of the dark-eyed, go ahead.
I was going to say what's so dangerous about that is this, is that God requires patience. Satan does not. He gives people an instant answer. And so he can always operate first and lead people astray because God will make you wait on answers. See, when he gives us an answer, it's the full answer. It's a healthy answer. And Satan, just like in the garden, when God said, don't eat of the tree, this tree don't eat of, they had thoughts in their minds. Well, why not? But they just let it go. Here comes Satan. Well, I'll tell you why not. He doesn't want you to be like him. See, Satan gives an answer before God does. That's why God requires patience. That's why all too often when we pray about something, a counterfeit comes first. And it feels wrong, but we think it's an answer. Why? Because it gets us out of a mess. Satan's going to do the same thing on a massive level. And this is why Israel and Israel's people have to be liberated from these people. And only God knows how to do it in his perfect timing and perfect way.
That's right.
But there are people embedded into that system that they're so embedded that it's a believable thing that they're teaching. You know what? People are going to come up with proof that they should follow the old ways, meaning being back under the law, but it'll be twisted. They're going to give these false Christs and false prophets will have power like this world has not witnessed before. And they're going to embed themselves in a system to draw many to them. And it will take Jesus Christ to break that cycle.